Hello guys, this is Africans for Africa, fighting for the liberation of African economy. Today we are still talking about the economic freedom of Africa. Now there are a couple of things we are going to look into, a big puzzle of why Africa is still where it is. It is very, very important that we understand the international monetary system, which is based upon the dollar, in which all trade across the world is all conducted in dollar. It definitely doesn't work very well for Africa. We are trading our assets for dollar. These are assets. Dollar is a liability than an asset. We are emphasizing for African leaders and government to reform their legislative policy that will act as an instrument for successful and effective trade. Like Nelson Mandela said, political freedom without economic freedom, the liberation is incomplete. Is Africa economically free as it stands? You guys have heard about the BRICS. The BRICS is coming on hot. Last week you heard the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, inviting 5 other countries to join the BRICS, which is Argentina is being invited, Iran, Ethiopia, as well as Egypt and the United Arab Emirates. So 5 more countries will be joining the BRICS early next year, sometime in January. The good news about the BRICS announcement last week of these 5 countries joining the BRICS is we have 2 other African representatives on board, which is Ethiopia and Egypt. Because these are types of deals that are a bit scary, where African fates will be determined without African head of states being present. And that we don't want. So we are happy to some degree that we got 3 countries to present us in this BRIC alliance. With the BRIC alliance, I want to say something very important, and we must be very careful. These are words that came from Kwame Nkrumah, the Pan-African himself. He said, colonialism and imperialism may come in a different disguise, not necessarily from Europe. We must alert ourselves and be able to recognize this when it rears its head and prepare ourselves to fight it. I quote Nkwame Nkrumah. As you can look in between those lines of Nkwame Nkrumah, today we have the BRICS. And these BRICS could just be another form of colonialization and imperialization. So we need to be very careful on how we're going to engage ourselves trading with other countries, be it China, be it Russia, Dubai, India. We need to be very, very careful. In order for Africa to gain its liberation, its economic freedom, Africa needs to unite. Africa needs to have one voice. PLO Lumumba said, unit is the magic bullet. And you know that our unit of Africa has been manipulated during the time of the Berlin Conference. Ever since then, Africa's unit has been manipulated. In order for us to conquer, to experience total freedom, we need to unite as one Africa with one voice. In 1963, a conference, a meeting of heads of states was held up in Addis Ababa, which brought about the birth of AU, African Union. Very excited, very inspiring, thinking this will bring Africa together, this will unite Africa. But today we find Africa still going further and further apart from each other, with legislations that do not favor the African people of free movement of goods and services. The big question is, what makes a great economy? What makes a country powerful? Creating sustainable trade. That's what makes a country powerful. Now, if you do a study of all these powerful countries around the world, there is one thing in common: energy. As long as you preserve, you have sufficient energy to industrialize the continent, then we can become a strong continent. Our first priority is energy, to invest into this energy, creating industries, creating processing centers that will bring about value addition to our raw materials. It's very difficult for most African countries. They are not economically independent, which makes it very difficult to trade, to build up their economy, because our dependence is upon the US dollar. That's why you see sanctions to most of these African countries, they go into effect very easily, and the people end up suffering because because of lack of economic independence. Look at sanctions like on Zimbabwe by the USA, destroyed the entire economy of Zimbabwe. Sanctions on Niger from the ECOWAS destroyed the entire economy, yet they have all these natural assets, natural reserved energy. We are calling for economic independence, to be economically free. With the Berlin Conference, it ensures the unity of Africa is in shambles. Africa is deeply embedded in the colonialism and imperialism. So much under control of our economy, of our culture, our language, the monetary system, IMF, controlling our money. We are calling upon Africans to engage ourselves into this battle, to embed ourselves from these economic shackles. We need to break through in order for us to grow. Break through mentally, break through our literature. Africa has to go back to its origin than being a copycat. Everything, our religion, our language, everything, we copy that. It's not ours. They're talking about climate change. Yes, climate change is there, but look at Africa. Africa has got renewable energy, green minerals. That is going to save the world. We just need to put up a good trade policy that works for you and for us. It's time for Africa to wake up. Africa, we are so blessed, I'm telling you. Look at Mansa Musa, one of the richest, if not the richest, to ever walk on the modern earth, where he stepped his feet in Egypt and bankrupted the economy of Egypt because he was so rich that everywhere he went, he was giving out gold. Africa, very rich. Until we break loose from the agreement that was made in the Berlin Conference of 1884 and 85, Africa will never be free from its economic independence. It was during that same time of the Berlin Conference when Leopold II of Belgium took over and ruled Congo Free State from 1885 to 1909. 2 decades, and within these 2 decades, Leopold fully murdered 20 million Congolese, died in just 20 years under the leadership of Leopold II of Belgium. Yet, ironically, he has never been mentioned in any history books as one of the worst leaders ever to live. When you look at someone like Adolf Hitler of Germany, who killed 2 million Jews, he's been labeled one of the worst humans to ever leave the face of the earth. What about Leopold, who killed 20 million Congolese? You know, Africa has been so dehumanized. Dehumanized to the point whereby they put us in cages in the zoo to showcase us in that manner. I'll tell you a story about a young man called Ota Benga. Ota Benga from Congo, the current DRC. He was a pygmy that was taken to Europe, put in a cage in the zoo for showcasing Ota Benga. You can imagine the agony of being in the zoo, people coming, watching, looking at you, like an animal put in the zoo for display. Tragically, we lost him during the process, Ota Benga. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we are Africans for Africa. We will continue to fight for the liberation of African economy, to engage into international trades on a new legislative and trade policies. It will just be fair for everyone that is going to be engaged to benefit from the trade. Therefore, we call upon African leaders to kindly look into most of these legislations, especially within African countries, so there might be free movement of goods and services from one country to another in the continent of Africa. I thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Until next time, tune in for latest African updates. This is Africans for Africa. Viva Africa!